Hey guys, here is part 3 to my AutoCAD basic tools tutorial. In this video, I'm going to go over the basic tools in the Dimension Toolbar. So for this video, I will have timestamps in the description so that you can skip to the different tools so you don't have to watch the full video if you just need information on one. I will also have the other videos in this series linked in the description below if you want to watch those as well. Each video goes over a different toolbar. For this video, I am going to be using the same drawing file that I created in the previous videos, just as an example and to keep it consistent. The first tool that I'm going to talk about today is the linear dimension, which is the first tool in the Dimension Toolbar. And what this tool does is it essentially just shows you the distance between 2 points that you specify. So, for example, if I want the length of this line, I can just select one endpoint first, and now it's going to ask me to specify my second endpoint, which I'm going to just use the other point of this line. And we will see that it creates a dimension there. And you can use this for any points. They don't have to be directly lined up with each other. So for example, I'm going to select my linear dimension command again, and I'm going to select the distance between these two edges, and I'm going to use opposite corners just to demonstrate that it doesn't matter. So I'm going to select one corner and then the other, and it'll still just have that dimension there. And you can either place the dimension as the horizontal dimension, or if you move your mouse to the other direction, it'll be the vertical distance between the 2 points. The next command I'm going to talk about is actually going to be the dimension style command, which is on the opposite side of the Dimension Toolbar. And in this command, you can change the style of the text for your dimensions. So you just select the icon, and you can create a new set of settings, but I'm just going to modify the already existing ones. So I'm going to select Modify, and then in here, in these different windows, you can change different properties of the lines by changing the baseline spacing, or the style of the arrows, or the size of the text. Typically, the only thing you need to change is the size of the text. So for my example, I'm just going to make this 1.5, and then hit OK on the bottom, and then close. And we can see that that changes all of our text in the drawing. And you can go in and play with the other dimensions and get it how you want it to look, but for now, that's all I'm going to change. For this drawing, I'm also going to create a quick layer for the dimensions, just so that we can differentiate between the different objects and the dimensions that are going to be in the drawing. So I'm just going to open my layer settings and right click on my mouse and select new layer. I'm going to name this dimension, and I'm going to keep the settings default. I'm just going to change the color to red and close out of there. And then to move something to a different layer, you just select it and then select your layer drop down and click on the layer that you want to move it to. So now we can see those are on our dimension layer, and that will just help us differentiate between the dimensions that we're placing and the objects in the drawing. So the next tool that I'm going to talk about is the aligned dimension command, which is the next dimension in the toolbar. And for this command, it is similar to the linear command, where you just identify the distance between 2 points. but for this command it is aligned to whatever you are selecting. So for example, I'm going to use this angled line on the drawing, and I'm going to do the same process where I select one endpoint first and then the second endpoint, and we can see as we place our drawing it is lined up with that line on the drawing. And I'm just going to move that to my dimension layer real quick. So now we can see how that gives us the linear dimension between each of those endpoints, and it is in line with the existing line. Now I'm going to talk about a couple different ways to dimension circles. So when you have a circle in a drawing, the two most basic ways to dimension the size of those circles is to use the radius command or the diameter command. So first I'm just going to explain the radius command. So in my Dimension Toolbar, I'm going to select the radius command, and then I'm going to use this circle as my example. So then you just select the circle you want to dimension, and we can see it will have that dimension able to be placed. So you can just place it wherever you want, like that. The next command is the diameter command, which is similar to the radius command in that you use it to dimension circles. So I'm going to select my diameter command, and now I'm going to use this circle as my example. And when you select the circle, it will have the same option to place it wherever you want. And I'm going to place it outside of my circle. And we can see that for these dimensions, the radius command has an R in front of it to indicate that it's the radius, and the diameter command has this circle with a line through it to indicate that it is a diameter dimension. Both of these styles of dimensions are used fairly commonly when you have drawings. The next command I'm going to talk about is the angular dimension command, which creates an angle between two lines that you select. So for my example, I'm going to use this chamfer that I created in the last video, and I just want the angle of this line to the horizontal. So it's going to first have you select your first object. So I'm going to select my line, and now we just select our second line, and we can see that it gives us this angle between them. And as we move our mouse, it'll show us the different angles that exist between them. So I'm just going to place this dimension right here. And that tells us that it is a 45-degree angle. The last command that I'm going to talk about in this video is the tolerance command. And tolerances are used a lot in drawings when you are machining parts and you need an object to be within a certain range of dimensions. And I'm not going to go into the details of how tolerances work or like why they're set up. I'm just going to show you how to add one to a drawing. So I'm going to select my tolerance command, and it's going to pull up this window, and you can change a lot of different settings here. You can click on this first box, which is symbol, and it'll give you different options. For example, this one is parallel, this one indicates perpendicular, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to use this parallel symbol as an example. And then you can change different items in these boxes. So you can change the material condition to be these different options. And you can also turn on the diameter symbol between your tolerances. And you can create different datums as well. For my example, I'm just going to type in A 0.1, and then when you hit OK, it will show you the outline of the box, and I'm just going to place this off to the side here, and we'll see that it'll put all of our tolerances in there. And to edit it, you can just double click on it and it'll open this box, and you can add in two different rows as well. So say I wanted to add another one, I could go in and do that, and it would update to show. And you can also move it around by just selecting it and just moving it with your mouse. These are used in more complicated drawings, and yeah. So that is the last command that I'm going to talk about. One thing that I did want to mention is, as you are dimensioning a drawing, it is possible to over-dimension the drawing, which essentially just means that you put so many dimensions that it's cluttered and hard to read. So a good rule of thumb that I like to use is to just represent every dimension once. So if you're making a drawing, you only need to place the dimension for a specific object in one view. You don't need to place it in every view that you have in the drawing, or else it'll get cluttered and it won't be easy to read. So that is all that I have for this video. If you have any other videos you want to see made, feel free to reach out to me or leave a comment. That's cool. If you have any questions or want me to elaborate on any of these commands in more depth, feel free to let me know. But for now, that is all. So thank you.